The night on Ilaris 4 was longer than any human world should ever know. A pale sun barely touched the horizon, painting the snow in dull silver. The wind howled through the metal ribs of Commander Ryan Hale's shelter, a small outpost cabin left from the days of war. Ryan sat alone by a flickering heat lamp, his breath fogging in the cold air. He had once commanded hundreds of soldiers, fought across alien skies, and survived battles that turned cities into glass. But now his war was with silence, the cold, the loneliness that crept through every corner of his soul. He had retired here, far from the noise of Earth. He told himself he came for peace, but deep down he knew it was guilt. Guilt for the soldiers who never came back. Guilt for the alien civilians caught between both sides. The Thrakesh War had ended 20 years ago, but its ghosts had never really gone away. Outside, the wind shifted. The faint hum of the generator stuttered. Ryan frowned and tapped the control panel, trying to coax the heat back. Suddenly, a faint sound reached his ears. Knock, knock. He froze. No one should be here. The nearest settlement was 20 kilometers away, and even the patrol drones rarely came this far. The knock came again, soft, uneven, like someone struggling to keep balance. Ryan grabbed his sidearm, moved to the door, and peered through the frost-covered window. What he saw didn't make sense. A Thrakesh female. Her carapace, dull and cracked, stood outside in the snow. In her forearms she clutched 2 small bundles wrapped in torn thermal cloth. Steam rose from her breath as she shivered violently in the cold. Her antennae twitched as she looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly blue in the darkness. "Human," she said through the speaker, her voice trembling but clear. "Please, I will warm your bed. My children need a father." Ryan's heart pounded. The word sounded strange, wrong even. But he understood. The Thrakesh were insectoid. Warmth was survival for them. Warm your bed wasn't what it sounded like. It was a plea for shelter. He hesitated only a moment longer before pulling the lever. The door opened with a sharp hiss of cold air. "Get in," he said firmly. The alien stumbled inside, her legs trembling. The 2 small bundles, her children, made faint clicking noises. Ryan quickly sealed the door again, pressing the controls until the airlock lights turned green. The female sank to the floor, curling protectively around her young. Ryan crouched nearby. "You're safe now. You can rest." She looked up, her mandibles quivering. "You help. Thrakesh?" He nodded slowly. "Not all humans are soldiers anymore." For the next few minutes, Ryan worked silently. He moved the heater closer, fetched water from the purifier, and handed her a thermal blanket. She accepted it with shaking claws, wrapping it around the larvae like children. When their shivering slowed, Ryan finally spoke. "What happened?" Her voice was faint. "Stormar destroyed nest. My mate gone, many dead. The wind took the young, only we left." Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. The storms on Ilaris 4 could tear apart steel. If her home was gone, they must have walked for miles through deadly cold. He looked at the small ones, soft, pale, and weak. Their eyes fluttered open briefly, glowing faintly green. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tyrell," she said, her speech broken but understandable. "You are human soldier?" "Was," he said softly. "Long time ago." She lowered her head. "We know that name. Ryan Hale, the one who burned the sky of Hreth." Ryan's stomach clenched. He remembered that battle. The orbital strike the civilians caught below. It had been a strategic target, but it haunted him every night since. He looked away. "Yes, that was me." Tyrell was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she said, "Then you know what war does." "My mate died saving humans from the same fire." Ryan blinked. "He saved humans?" She nodded slowly. "He was guard at the tunnels. When fire fell, he opened path. Many lived. He did not." The air grew heavy. 2 survivors of opposite sides, both broken by the same war, now trapped in the same cold. The heater flickered again. Ryan cursed under his breath and checked the display. The power cell was dying. "Damn it," he muttered. "Generators failing." Tyrell tilted her head. "Then we freeze." He ran a hand through his hair. "Not if I can help it." He went to the storage room, grabbed emergency heat packs, and returned. But even as the packs warmed, the temperature continued to fall. The wind outside was turning into a blizzard. Tyrell shifted uneasily. "Thrakesh bodies need shared heat. We Cannot live long cold. Ryan looked at her and then at the two small ones sleeping beside her. He nodded once. Then we do it your way. He placed the heater near the wall, rolled out his thermal blankets and gestured for her to come closer. She hesitated. You are sure? Yeah, he said quietly. We survive together or not at all. Slowly, carefully, she moved closer, her chitin plates clicking softly. Her children nestled between them, their small bodies emitting faint warmth of their own. Ryan felt the strange, dry heat radiating from her, different from human warmth but comforting. For a while, neither spoke. Only the wind howled beyond the walls. After some time, Terrell said softly, You fear me. Ryan opened his eyes. Used to, not anymore. You killed many, Thrakesh. Yes. You regret. He didn't answer at first. The truth was written in his silence. Terrell lowered her head. My people said humans have no heart. They were wrong. Ryan gave a faint smile. Some of us don't. Some of us are trying to find it again. Hours passed. The temperature rose slowly, enough for them to breathe easier. The two young ones, Plea and Mar, stirred awake. They crawled toward Ryan curiously, their antennae twitching. Ryan froze as one reached out a small claw and touched his hand. It was soft, delicate. He didn't pull away. Terrell watched silently. They remember warmth, she said softly. You give warmth now. Ryan chuckled under his breath. Guess I'm full of surprises. For the first time, she made a faint sound, something between a chirp and a sigh. A Thrakesh laugh, perhaps. The tension between them began to fade. She spoke haltingly, her voice slow and uncertain, learning as she went. Ryan found himself answering her questions, only about humans, Earth, stars. He told her about oceans that moved like silver, forests that sang in the wind, and sunlight that didn't freeze your bones. Terrell listened, eyes wide. Your world. Sounds alive. It is, he said quietly. And we almost lost it once because we couldn't stop fighting each other. She looked down at her children. Maybe, and now we learn, Ryan nodded. Maybe. By morning, the storm had quieted. The sunlight broke through clouds, turning the frozen fields into glass. Ryan stepped outside to check the generator. His boots crunched in the snow. Behind him, the door opened. Terrell stood there, her smaller ones huddled close. Her carapace shimmered faintly in the weak light. This world. Cruel, she said. But still beautiful. Ryan smiled faintly. Yeah, that's Ilaris 4. She looked at him, her voice gentle. You saved us. I will not forget, he shrugged. Anyone would have done the same. She tilted her head. No, many humans would close the door. He didn't argue. He just stared at the horizon, the faint glow of another storm forming far away. Finally, she spoke again, softly. You ask why I said those words. I will warm your bed. He turned, curious. It is not promise of joining, she explained carefully. It means I share life. In old Thrakesh ways, it is a vow to keep another alive, to give warmth until one breath ends. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, Then I guess we made a vow last night. Terrell's mandibles curved, a Thrakesh smile. Yes, you, me, and our small ones, maybe. We start again. Ryan watched her step back inside the cabin, her children chirping softly. The wind picked up again, carrying distant echoes of the past. He sighed, closing the door behind him. For the first time in years, the silence inside didn't feel empty. It felt alive. The storms passed, but the cold stayed. On Ilaris IV, the sky always looked like faded steel, and the wind never stopped whispering. Days blended together, quiet, heavy, yet strangely peaceful. Commander Ryan Hale had grown used to silence, but now his home was full of sound. Soft clicks and hums came from every corner of the cabin. The two Thrakesh children, Plea and Mar, had decided that everything inside was fascinating. They crawled along the walls, studying his old tools, his worn-out books, and the strange glowing screen that showed weather readings. Don't touch that, Ryan said one morning as Mar reached for the heater controls. Mar froze, then made a small squeak that almost sounded like laughter. Terrell looked up from repairing a broken solar cell near the wall. He learns fast, she said in her soft musical voice. He watches you. He thinks you are. Strong like mountain, Ryan smiled slightly. A mountain, huh? Haven't felt that strong in years. Terrail tilted her head, her antennae twitching with thought. Humans grow weak when alone, she said simply. Now maybe you grow strong again. Ryan looked away, pretending to focus on his datapad. But inside her words stung with truth. For years he had lived with ghosts. Now, in this strange company, the ghosts seemed quieter. Life in the cold weeks passed. Together they rebuilt the shelter. Terrell taught Ryan how to seal cracks using bioresin from Thrakesh insects. In return, Ryan showed her how to repair power conduits and calibrate the solar grid. They worked in silence most of the time, but it was a comfortable silence. At night, when the temperature dropped too low, they gathered near the heater. Ryan told stories about Earth, about oceans, birds, and rain that smelled sweet. The children listened with glowing eyes while Terrell's mandibles curved in quiet wonder. In turn, she told him about the hives of Hreth, her home before the war. She described great crystal caverns where the walls sang when wind passed through them, and how her people believed that every sound carried memory. Even now, she said one night, I think the wind here remembers. It sings of those lost, Ryan nodded slowly. Maybe that's why it never stops. Terrell looked at him for a long moment. You lost many too, yes? He didn't answer right away. The firelight flickered across his face, and when he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. Too many to count. The alien nodded as if she understood more than words could say. The world beyond one morning, Ryan ventured into the nearby human settlement, New Arcadia, a cluster of domes on the frozen plain. He needed supplies, ration packs, fuel cells, and a new heat converter. The streets were quiet, full of tired colonists wrapped in heavy coats. As he entered the trading post, a few people turned their heads. Ryan Hale was known here, the war hero who chose exile over command. Behind the counter stood Sergeant Alara Voss, a patrol officer. Her sharp eyes caught his instantly. Hale, she said, crossing her arms. Didn't think you were still alive out there. Barely, Ryan said dryly. Need supplies, she scanned his list. You've been using a lot of power cells for one man. Ryan froze. That a problem? Ilara narrowed her gaze. Not unless you're harboring something. Or someone. He met her eyes steadily. It's cold out there, Sergeant. Power burns fast. After a pause, she handed him the supplies. Be careful, Commander. Patrol found alien tracks not far from your sector. The Thrakesh are restless again. You wouldn't want to. Get caught up in something. Ryan took the supplies without a word and walked out, but the warning echoed in his mind all the way home. A home divided. When he returned, the children ran to greet him, clicking excitedly. Terral was in the greenhouse dome, tending to a line of nutrient pods. The faint scent of growing plants filled the air. Green, alive, fragile. You found food, she said as he entered. Yeah, Ryan replied. Enough for a month. But there's something else. She looked up. Humans came? He nodded. They're watching. They know someone's with me. Terrell's antennae lowered slightly, the Thrakesh sign of worry. If they find us, they kill. Ryan shook his head. Not all of them, but some might try. Silence filled the greenhouse. The distant hum of machinery was the only sound. Finally, Ryan spoke. We can't hide forever. We'll need a plan. Terrell stood tall. I can leave, he turned sharply. No, you won't survive out there with the young. And I won't let you go. Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the dim light. Then we stay, together. Ryan nodded. Together. The other side of the sky 2 nights later, a strange sound woke him. The low buzz of engines above the clouds. He went outside and saw distant lights moving across the horizon. Thrakesh flyers gliding like silent predators. Tral came to stand beside him. They search for survivors, she whispered. My clan may be near. Ryan frowned. Will they help you? She hesitated. They will see me as traitor. I live with human. They do not understand peace. Ryan exhaled slowly. Then we keep them away from here. Days passed in uneasy quiet. Ryan fortified the outpost, checked the perimeter sensors, and trained Tili and Mar to hide when alarms sounded. He didn't want to think of it as preparing for war, but old habits came naturally. Tral noticed. You build walls again, she said softly one evening. He glanced at her. Force of habit, she tilted her head. Walls keep danger out, but also keep peace from coming in. Ryan smiled faintly. You sound like an old general, she replied calmly. War teaches same lessons to all. Learning to live despite the fear outside, life inside the shelter grew almost normal. Ryan taught the children how to read human letters using his old data pad. They learned fast and faster than human kids would have. One night, Mar proudly showed him a shaky drawing on the screen. A stick figure human holding hands with two small insectoid figures under a glowing sun. Ryan stared at it for a long time. Then he smiled. "That's pretty good, kid." Terrell watched silently, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "You are teaching them to dream." He looked up. That's what humans do best. It was midday when the knock came again, sharp and deliberate this time. Ryan tensed. No storm, no wind. Just quiet. He opened the camera feed. A human patrol vehicle stood outside, its lights flashing blue in the snow. Two soldiers waited, rifles at their sides. Terrell froze when she saw them on the screen. "Stay inside," Ryan whispered. He put on his coat and stepped out. Sergeant Ilara stood near the vehicle. "We got reports of alien movement out here," she said. "Mind if we check your place?" Ryan crossed his arms. "You got a warrant?" She frowned. "This isn't Earth, Hale. You know how it works." "We can't risk another incident." He met her gaze coldly. "No incidents here. Just me and a broken generator." Her partner stepped forward, scanning the area. "Tracks," he said, pointing to faint impressions near the side wall. Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Hale, you'd better tell me the truth. You hiding something?" Ryan stood still, his heart pounding. Behind him, inside the cabin, Terrell held her children close, silent as shadow. Finally, Ryan said calmly, "Only ghosts, Sergeant. And they don't breathe." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Ilara sighed. "Fine. But if Command finds out you're protecting aliens, even an old hero won't save you." Ryan nodded. "Understood." The patrol left, engines fading into the snowstorm. Ryan stayed outside until the sound vanished completely. When he went back in, Terrell looked at him with wide eyes. "They will come again," she whispered. "I know," Ryan said quietly. "Next time we'll be ready." Night of Stories that night, the air was heavy with tension. But Ryan knew fear wouldn't keep them alive. Only hope would. He sat near the heater with Terrell and the children. "Tell me about your stars," he said softly. Terrell blinked, surprised. Then she pointed one claw toward the window. "Our stars are red, warm. We say every red star holds a mother's song. When young ones travel, the song follows." Ryan smiled faintly. "Then maybe your mother's song is watching us right now." She looked at him, her voice soft. "And yours?" He thought for a moment. "Humans say the stars are stories. Maybe we're writing one now." Terrell nodded slowly. "Then let it be story of two who refuse to hate." Ryan met her gaze. "I can live with that." Unseen shadows. Outside, in the frozen dark, lights flickered again on the horizon. But this time they weren't Thrakesh flyers. They were human patrol drones. Both sides were watching. Both sides waiting. Inside the small cabin, two species that had once fought to destroy each other now sat together, whispering stories under the hum of a dying heater. And for the first time in decades, Ryan Hale felt alive, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as something far rarer, a human being who had chosen compassion over fear. The winter on Alaris IV was finally breaking. Thin rivers of melting ice crawled across the frozen ground, and the air smelled faintly of damp soil. For the first time in months, the sun rose high enough to paint light across the colony's metallic rooftops. Inside his small homestead, Ryan Hale leaned over the power grid display. "We're stable," he said, tapping a few keys. "Solar recharge is back to 80%. Across from him, Terrell knelt beside a storage unit, sorting tools. "The sky grows warm," she said softly. "Maybe this world is kind after all." Ryan gave a small smile. "Kind sometimes, but don't trust it too much." Her mandibles curved in what he had learned to recognize as a Thrakesh smile. "You do not trust anything. Even peace," Ryan chuckled quietly. "Old habits." Behind them, Plea and Mar were busy drawing on the floor panel with a piece of dull metal. The image was simple, a human and a Thrakesh standing side by side under a sun. Ryan glanced at it and felt a strange warmth spread in his chest. The world outside might still be dangerous, but in this small cabin they had built something close to a family. Signs of trouble, but peace, as always, was fragile. One morning, while checking the outer sensors, Ryan noticed strange readings. Movement on the ridge, he said. Terrell walked up beside him. Human. He zoomed in on the camera feed. Shadows moved between the rocks, too fast for humans, too quiet for drones. Thrakesh, Ryan muttered. A patrol. Maybe 6 or 7. Terrell's antennae stiffened. My clan. Ryan turned to her. You sure? She nodded slowly. I know their markings. They were warriors once. If they find me with you, they will call me betrayer. Ryan rubbed his chin. And if humans see them near my home, they'll think I'm working with aliens. The truth was clear, neither side would understand. He checked the sky. Thin trails of smoke marked human patrol ships on the horizon. Both forces were closing in from opposite sides. We're trapped, he said quietly. Terrell's eyes dimmed. Then we choose who to face. The human arrival by evening, Ryan saw dust rising from the plain. A human convoy in armored vehicles and soldiers in black winter suits approached. At the front, a familiar figure stood tall in the open transport. General Alara Voss, the same woman who had once warned him in New Arcadia. Ryan went outside. Stepping into the cold wind, the convoy stopped a short distance away. Voss climbed down, her boots crunching in the snow. Commander Hale, she said sharply. You've been busy, Ryan nodded slightly. Just surviving. Her eyes scanned the area. You're harboring Thrakesh, aren't you? He stayed silent. Voss sighed. You know what that means. Commands declared renewed contact with their species a violation of the armistice. They say Thrakesh raiders hit a human colony on Vega Line. If they're here, we have orders to eliminate them. Ryan felt the cold settle in his chest. You think Terrell and her children did that? Doesn't matter what I think, Voss replied. Orders are orders, he stepped forward. Then you're going to have to go through me. For a moment, the soldiers behind her tightened their grips on their rifles. Voss frowned. Don't make me choose between duty and mercy, Ryan. He met her eyes. You already did once. When you let me go last time, silence. Then she turned away. You have until dawn. Leave this place. After that, I can't protect you. Ryan didn't thank her. He only nodded and went back inside, his mind racing. Between 2 fires that night, the air was thick with tension. The children slept unaware of the danger. Ryan sat by the heater, staring into the flames. They're coming, he said quietly. At dawn, Terrell stood by the window watching the stars. And my clan comes from the east. They will arrive by nightfall. Ryan exhaled slowly. So both sides meet here. Yes, she said. At your door, he laughed bitterly. Figures. Peace never lasts. Terrell turned to face him. You could leave. Take your ship. Live safe in the human city. He looked up. And abandon you? Not a chance, she stared at him, her eyes glowing faintly. Why, you owe nothing. Maybe not, he said softly. But I remember what you told me. Your mate saved humans once, even when it cost him his life. I think I owe him this. Terrell lowered her head. Then we stand together. The clash by dawn, both armies were in sight. Human patrols formed a line on the west ridge, while Thrakesh flyers glided down from the east. Their bodies glinting in the sunlight, Ryan's home sat between them, a lonely outpost caught in the middle of 2 species ready to fight. Again, he activated the outer speakers and broadcast across both frequencies. This is Commander Ryan Hale, Terran Defense Corps, retired, he said. I am requesting an immediate ceasefire. You're standing on neutral ground. There are civilians here, alien and human alike. You start shooting, you'll kill families, not enemies. Static answered. Then came the voice of General Voss. Hale, step away from the aliens. This is your last warning. A second voice, deep clicking alien, followed on another channel. Human voice lies. Thrakesh blood must be cleansed. The traitor Terrell dies today. Terrell stood beside Ryan, unarmed, her eyes calm. They will not listen, he stared at her. Then we'll make them listen. The broadcast Ryan ran to the main console and connected his old satellite uplink. We're not fighting, he said. We're showing them. He switched the camera feed to live broadcast mode, transmitting visuals from every angle. The Thrakesh children playing behind the barrier, Terrell standing beside him, and the human troops aiming rifles toward the cabin. Then he spoke. His voice carried across open frequencies, recorded and sent to every nearby colony ship and station in orbit. Listen to me, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I've seen war. I've seen what hate does. I've burned cities and buried friends. I thought peace meant silence, but peace is not silence. Peace is when you choose to understand instead of destroy. This woman, Tiral, and her children, they are not enemies. They are survivors like us. If we kill them, we kill the last proof that we can be better. For a long moment, no one fired. Then one human soldier lowered his weapon. Then another. Across the field, some Thrakesh hissed uncertainly. The leader shouted orders, but no one moved. The wind carried Ryan's words far across the valley, echoing between human radios and alien transmitters. Finally, the first shot came, not from the humans, but from one of the Thrakesh warriors. Ryan ducked, shielding Tiral. The bullet hit the solar tower, sending sparks into the air. Instantly, alarms blared, and the entire field erupted into chaos. The stand Ryan grabbed his old rifle, though he had no wish to use it. "Stay inside," he shouted to Tiral and the children. He took position outside, firing warning shots into the air. "Stop, there are civilians here." General Voss's voice crackled over the radio. "Hale, stand down." "Not until they stop shooting." The battle raged. Humans against Thrakesh, both sides confused, half-blind, neither sure who started it. Then amid the smoke, Tiral ran out, holding her hands high. "Stop this," she cried in her harsh accent. "No more death." Her voice carried above the gunfire. She stood between the armies, her armor cracked, her claws empty. Everyone froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. She turned, looking at both sides. "You fight for honor, but honor dies when children die. Look." She pointed back toward the cabin where her two young ones peeked out, trembling but alive. "Is this what you fight for?" The silence grew heavy. Then slowly, soldiers on both sides began to lower their weapons. Ryan walked to her side, standing beside her in the open field. Human and alien, shoulder to shoulder. For the first time, no one fired. The message cameras from drones above captured the entire moment. Two former enemies standing together to stop a war. The image spread across the planetary network, then across the Terran systems. By nightfall, the order came from orbit. "Cease all engagements. Stand down immediately." The battle was over before it began. When the soldiers withdrew, Ryan and Tiral stood in the silence of the broken plain. Smoke drifted through the air, but the stars above shone brighter than before. Tiral turned to him. "You saved us." He shook his head. "We saved each other." The cost their home was damaged, but still standing. The next day, repair drones arrived from the capital, not to arrest, but to help rebuild. General Voss visited again, walking quietly through the melted snow. "You disobeyed orders," she said. Ryan looked at her. "Would you have done any different?" After a pause, she said softly, "No." Then she handed him a small communicator. "Command wants to talk to you. They saw your broadcast. The entire colony did." He smiled faintly. "Good, maybe they'll start listening." Voss nodded. "They're calling it the Hale transmission. People are talking about peace again." Ryan looked toward Tiral and her children. Then maybe it was worth it. That night, as the stars burned quietly over Alaris 4, Ryan sat beside Tiral near the half-repaired heater. The children slept nearby, their soft clicks filling the air like a lullaby. Tiral spoke quietly. "You could have died today." He nodded. "Yeah, but at least it would have meant something." She looked at him, her voice full of quiet strength. "You gave your warmth to us once. Now you gave it to the world." Ryan smiled tiredly. "Guess I'm full of warmth after all." For the first time in years, the night didn't feel cold. The world on Alaris 4 had changed. Where once cold storms and silence ruled, now the land carried signs of life. Tiny green shoots emerged from thawing soil, and the rivers began to flow freely again. Human and Thrakesh colonies worked together to rebuild what the war had nearly destroyed. Inside his small homestead, Commander Ryan Hale looked out across the fields. His home, battered but repaired, now served as a sanctuary, not just for him and Tiral, but for other displaced Thrakesh and human families alike. The cabin had become a symbol of hope, of coexistence, and of the strange bridge between two very different species. Ryan's life had changed in ways he could not have imagined. Once a soldier hardened by battle, he now found himself playing the role of teacher, caretaker, and sometimes even a father figure to two young Thrakesh children. Tilly and Mar, now slightly older and taller, ran across the cabin floor, clicking happily as they carried pieces of scavenged machinery. Ryan watched them, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You're going to break that," he called out. Plea looked back, eyes glowing, but did not stop. "We are learning, human. We will fix, not break." Ryan laughed. "We'll see about that." Terrell, kneeling beside the nutrient garden in the greenhouse dome, glanced up. "They grow fast, faster than human children. You taught them well." Ryan nodded quietly. "You did too. You taught them courage." She tilted her head. "Courage is what humans always admire, but it is mercy that changes worlds." He considered her words. Mercy. Something he had almost forgotten during the long years of war. Now he understood. It had been mercy that had saved them all. Not weapons, not strategy, not orders, but the choice to protect life instead of destroy it. Rebuilding together. The days that followed were filled with activity. Human and Thrakesh engineers worked side by side to repair outposts and power grids. Ryan led small groups training both species to operate hybrid machinery, combining human tech with Thrakesh bioengineering. Terrell oversaw the construction of shelters for other displaced families. Her calm presence inspired confidence. Even the most skeptical humans began to trust her judgment. For Ryan, every day was a lesson in coexistence. He taught children to read, showed adults how to repair damaged systems, and learned in return from Terrell and the Thrakesh workers. The bond between the two species, fragile as it was at first, began to strengthen. One morning, Ryan observed Plea adjusting a small drone using parts scavenged from a broken rover. "Careful," he warned. "You'll fry it." Plea paused, antennae twitching. "No, human, we learn from mistakes." "You taught us this," Ryan laughed. "You're right. I did." Terrell watched silently, her glowing eyes bright in the morning light. "Perhaps we are learning more from you than you realize." Ryan shook his head. "Maybe. Or maybe you're just teaching me to be human again." A symbol of hope months passed, and the story of the small homestead that had stood between two armies became famous across the colony. Pilots, traders, and diplomats visited to see the place where humans and Thrakesh had first begun working together. The cabin had grown. A larger structure now stood beside the original shelter, built from hybrid materials. Human alloys reinforced with Thrakesh chitin. Inside, rooms were designated for study, repairs, and recreation. The greenhouse dome expanded, producing fresh food for dozens of families. Ryan often found himself standing at the door, watching children, human and Thrakesh alike, playing together. The sound of laughter, strange clicking, and chatter filled the air. It was nothing like the silence of his early years on Alaris Forteral approached him quietly one evening. "You have done much, Ryan Hale." He shook his head. "We did it together." She placed a clawed hand gently on his shoulder. "Yes, together, but you gave your warmth first. You risked your life to teach others that peace is possible. That is courage." Ryan looked at her, seeing the quiet pride in her eyes. For the first time, he felt not like a soldier, not like a hero, but like someone who had truly made a difference. The children of two worlds, Plea and Mar, had grown into young adults, brilliant, curious, and strong. They had inherited the best of both species, human creativity and Thrakesh resilience. One day, Mar ran to Ryan, holding a small device. "Human, look what we built!" Ryan examined it, a hybrid communicator that could send messages across both human and Thrakesh networks instantly. This is impressive," he said, genuinely amazed. Plea added proudly, "We learned from both you and Mother. You showed us how to care. Mother taught us how to survive." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. They were not just children anymore. They were ambassadors, symbols of what two species could achieve when hatred was set aside. Terrell watched them from across the room, her body tense with pride. "They are more than I imagined. Perhaps our future is brighter than we hoped." Ryan nodded quietly. "Yes, and it started here in this cold little cabin." The colony council organized a ceremony to honor those who had stood for peace. Ryan and Terrell were asked to speak. Families from across Alaris IV attended, humans and Thrakesh together, witnessing the symbol of unity that the two had created. Ryan stepped forward first. "I have seen war," he said, his voice steady. "I have seen what fear, hatred, and silence can do. But I have also seen what compassion can do." When we choose to protect life, when we choose to understand, we can change everything. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us, Taral followed. My people taught me that survival is strength. Humans taught me that mercy is strength. Together we learned that the two can exist. Let us teach this to our children, that they may never see the war we endured. The audience, humans and Thrakesh alike, cheered. For the first time, Ryan felt the true weight of hope. The future weeks turned into months. The outpost became a thriving hub. Hybrid technology flourished, helping the colony grow faster than ever. Ryan continued to teach, but now he also learned, from Taral, from the children, and from the community he had helped create. Evenings were quiet again, but now they were filled with laughter and conversation. Ryan would sit by the heater, Taral beside him, the children playing nearby. Sometimes he would tell stories of Earth. Other times Taral would sing the ancient songs of her people. The sound of human and Thrakesh voices blended together like a new language, one of understanding and trust. Ryan often looked at Taral and the children. "You know," he said one evening, "I never thought I'd find a family again." Taral's glowing eyes softened. "Family is not given. It is chosen. You chose us. And you chose me," he said softly. She tilted her head, clicking softly in amusement. "Yes, and together we chose a world that can live." The legacy years later, the children, now grown and capable leaders, created new colonies, blending human and Thrakesh ways. They designed settlements where no species was master or servant. Only co-creator Ryan, older now, watched from his cabin, standing beside Taral. The world outside was no longer a frozen wasteland, but a mosaic of life, laughter, and hope. One day, Mar approached, holding a small holographic screen. "Grandfather, look. We sent messages across the colonies. Humans and Thrakesh share knowledge now." Ryan smiled. "That's what I call progress," Tilly added, "and we remember the first home where it started. Your home, human." Ryan looked at Taral and then at the children and felt a quiet peace he had never known. They had survived storms, hatred, and fear, and in the process they had built something greater than any soldier could win in war. Trust, unity, and hope, he whispered softly, more to himself than anyone else. "We finally learned to be more than survivors." Taral pressed her clawed hand gently to his shoulder. "Yes, we built a world together." And under the twin suns of Alaris IV, the human and Thrakesh families watched the horizon, a world reborn, a future bright, and hearts warm enough to face anything.